conversation today. If you've been a follower of the Author's Leverage, you know that we're about helping authors turn their books into a powerful platform by sharing your expertise and making an impact. And one thing that is really disrupting the space right now among all industries, like across the board, is AI. And today, I'm so excited that we're going to be having a conversation about AI and how authors really can leverage that. Right, that's what this show is about. So, if you're a first time listener, you're in for a special treat on this episode. And again, whether you're an aspiring author or someone who's a seasoned professional, this podcast is a go to source for you for tips, tools, techniques to help you leverage your book and amplify its reach. So, let me introduce you to today's guest. I have with me today Dr. Angela Lauria. She's the founder of Difference Press and creator of the Difference Process for writing a book that matters. Dr. Angela won the Stevie Awards Coach Mentor of the Year Award, and her program, The Author's Way, was named Coaching Program of the Year, and she was named by Entrepreneur Magazine as one of the top 10 most inspiring entrepreneurs to watch. Only two of them are women on the list. So, welcome, 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 Dr. Angie, to the show. Yay! So excited you're
I am
here.
so excited to be here. So
Yeah.
excited for this
Yes.
conversation.
Now we've been talking, right, offline, having conversations. We met at a dinner that we hosted in DC. We came out and connected there, and we've been connected since. Found it's quite the small world, right?
Yep.
We're
We share
connected.
some clients. Some of our
Yes,
favorite clients are shared, which is
exactly,
always nice.
exactly. And so I'm just always honored to talk to you and connect with you. So tell the listeners a little bit more about your world and what has been what are you seeing so far in your space has been exciting. I know we're going to dive
Yeah.
into AI, but what else is going on?
I've been helping people write books since 1994. It was my first job. I was still in college. So it was my first job out of college, but I got it spring break of senior year. So I made it out of college as a journalism major with a job in journalism, working on books for investigative reporters. And at the time in 1994, I was working for investigative reporters that largely did interviews, and then my job was to go to the library and look at microfiche. And everything changed when the internet
Yeah,
started to have a repository of that research. And I became sort of a cutting edge researcher for investigative journalists because I knew how to use Alta Vista. That was how cutting edge I
I
was.
remember
I
that.
loved Alta Vista. So I ended up weirdly doing programming for AOL. WashingtonPost.com hired me to like build out their newspaper online, which we had to make sure looked like a newspaper. We didn't know what the hell we were doing. And I developed these protocols for investigative journalists on how they could use the information superhighway. In fact, I wrote my master's thesis about this in 2000. Super cutting edge, and I was the go-to
Wow.
expert. And really everything with book writing and book marketing changed with the internet. And I did a lot of copywriting and affiliate deals. I ran the very first search engine campaign, paid search marketing campaign. I worked for a company called Conscious Media, and we
Mm,
had a Yahoo store. I don't think that still exists. It was like the
probably
early
not.
version of Spotify. Anyway, and now it's happened again. 23 years really later with AI.
Yeah.
There in two, I would say in 2010, KDP, Kindle, and Amazon Publishing Create Space. That was another big disruption where we saw the number of books 10x because of the accessibility of self-publishing. We're about to see the number of books 100x over the next couple years, which
Hmm.
is why it's so important to know your book strategy and know how to write a great book. When I first started writing, when I first started working in publishing, you had to be a pretty exceptional. The guys I worked for, and they were all white dudes, but the guys I worked for were Pulitzer Prize winning journalists
Hmm.
from the Washington Post and the New York Times, New York Herald, actually. So they were big newspapers with big followings, and that's how you got a book deal. And we've seen that change. Like in my lifetime in publishing, that is not the case. Many people can get a book out to a niche audience by using self publishing or hybrid publishing. Obviously, vanity presses were around back then. There were
Mhm.
ads at the back of Reader's Digest where you could pay $30,000 and get a garage full of books. But for the most part, it was not democratized. And that's why there were a lot of white guys getting a lot of money, old white guys getting a lot of money to write books. We have changed that. I'm
Mm.
so excited to be a part of that legacy. But something huge is happening with AI, and it feels just like when the internet came in, just
Yeah.
like when self publishing came in. Everything's about to be different. And so I think this is a super important episode for people to just start to understand how revolutionary AI is going to be for publishing.
100%. And like you said, now the output is going to go up like crazy, like 100 times more information being put out there. And so for authors who are hearing that, right, there's likely a number of fears that come up, right? Somebody's thinking to write a book in this area is already probably feeling some of that imposter syndrome with, oh my God, well, there's already so
Hmm.
many things out there, right? How would you advise an author to still jump into that playing field, right? Given so many more books that are being written, but still do it in a way that's going to stand out and be meaningful, even using AI, because maybe now they can get it done more quickly or at least get
Yeah.
started more quickly or have options in how they can move forward. But still, how do you stand out?
Yeah. So what happened in with the first big revolution to self-publishing was first we had all these gatekeepers. I mean, if we go back even further, just access to the printing press, like you had to be able to pay a bunch of priests to handwrite your manuscripts, right? So once we move past, we need scribes in a tower writing our books. That as the printing press was spread out, there were these gatekeepers. And you had to please or impress the gatekeepers to get noticed. And the way you would please them was by having the biggest, most unique idea that reached the most people. So that was great. That worked for a long time. And then self publishing came in,
Hmm.
and those gatekeepers had a lot less power. And with COVID, they had even less power because bookstore in store sales went down. And a lot of their power has to do with logistics and bookstores. So the second thing you needed to do to stand out was to have specific niche markets, or what Chris Anderson called the long tail. So now to stand out, instead of having the biggest, most unique idea for the most people, you wanted to have a transformative idea that was small,
Hmm.
consumable, and for an accessible niche that we could basically use Google keywords to find. Now, what you're going to see is A plus B. And this is going to make publishing so much better. And I'm so excited about it. There are going to be a lot more gatekeepers, and you need to have that niche content to stand out. So, those gatekeepers are weirdly also going to be robots. Eek. Um, but
Uh,
what's going to happen is instead of using search the way we've been using search, and we could just use long tail keywords to get our books to rise up, now we're going to have much more recommendation engines. So if you've looked at some of the stuff that's happening with Microsoft Bing, we can see where the future of search is going. Google has had their press release or their press conference about this as well. We know search is going to change with AI, and it's going to have to do with recommendations.
mm.
Bing, Ask Jeeves, I think it was the original promise of
Yeah, yeah,
Ask
yeah.
Jeeves, is going to recommend the right books for you because there's going to be so many, and so many are going to be crapola. Like if you think we have too many books out, so these numbers are really important to understand. When I started in publishing in 1994, there were about 300,000 nonfiction books published a year. Last year, 2021, so I'm a year behind, but in 2021, there were about 300,000 books published a month. So 12x. And I can tell you, if we were English teachers grading and we were going to give an average grade to the
Hmm.
books in 94, just in terms of like writing, we would probably grade those 300,000 books higher than the 300,000 times 12 books now.
Mhm.
And that's pretty obvious. Like, it's just math. There's a lot more of them. There are fewer gatekeepers. There are fewer editors. The quality has precipitously gone down as the volume has gone up. What I am predicting within the next 3 years, possibly as soon as a year, once a lot of like Zapier's already integrated, once a lot of the APIs are fully integrated with the large language models like Chat GPT, once GPT-4 comes out, you're going to see this happen really fast. We're going to be looking at arbitrage of 300,000 books a day
Whoa.
because it's going to be completely automated based on keywords.
Mm.
So there will be keyword searches, and then they'll just do a write this outline, write this book, use AI for formatting, which you can do now, upload it through Zapier hooks. And it's going to be really fast and easy. And they're going to arbitrage it for, and when I say they, what I mean are like internet marketers in Indonesia or India, and they're going to do exactly what they did with Google AdSense arbitrage, which is they're only going for one or two sales. So with Google AdSense, what they did is they built custom web pages for absolutely everything. They bought every domain, they built a custom web page for anything. So if you search for anything, they came up first and then they ran an ad through Google AdSense and they made 1 or 2 cents.
Mm.
And if two people went to that website, it was fine. They made 4 cents, but they had so many websites, 250,000 websites, that were just spinning
Mm.
content with content spinners.
Mm.
Now they're going to make that with KENP, so the Kindle net page
Wow.
reads. So they'll make 1 or 2 cents to read a couple pages. You'll read a couple pages, you'll be like, what the fuck is this? This is stupid and not what I wanted.
Mm.
They'll make their couple pennies
Yeah.
because you're a Kindle Prime member or whatever. And that they will need to have a volume to have a business based on pennies per book. So, how will we stand out? We will stand out with editors, a combination of the editors we use now on Netflix and Hulu. If you like this, you'll like that.
Okay.
So, being published with a company like Difference Press, where we have high quality authors that are in a community, that's going to get you recommended more than if you self publish. That's one way the recommendation engines will know. They'll look at an aggregate score of, movies put out by Michelle and Barack Obama. If you liked this movie
Mm-hmm.
about Crip Camp, then you're going to like this other Barack and Michelle movie. And oh, Barack and Michelle are friends with Harry and Meghan. Maybe you'll like this Harry and Meghan movie. So those interrelated
Mm.
communities are going to matter to the bots. And then we're going to have a lot more, just like you do right now with Netflix, what to watch on Netflix. So press is going to
Mm.
matter more.
Mm.
Video, having like video reviews, video collaborations with short form videos. If you're recommended by a TikToker or a YouTuber, that's going to mean a lot more. That's much more. Recommendation engines, human and bot, are going to replace the old editors of the 90s of my beginning of
Mm.
my career, because we won't be able to keep up with the volume with just search engine optimization like I've been doing for the last 10 years in book publishing.
Wow, it's crazy because there's so much online right now with that experience is lending itself to being that things that are recommended and personalized for me is what I'm seeing. And so, in that respect, right, that's going to also happen when it comes to books and other information that we gather. It's going to continue to become more personalized to you based on community, niches, things that you're already
Followers,
following.
algorithms,
Yes,
yeah.
all of that. It
Mhm.
just sounds like it's becoming way more personalized, which I love, right? I love that it creates that experience, and for the author or anyone as a business owner, like you said, you can focus in on these specialty niches and really dive in hard there. So when it comes to AI and these, like, because we talked about it, like, this is a tool. It's not meant to, in the end, replace us per
Right.
se. It's really meant to be a tool because we still have to be the ones as humans to essentially tell it what to do, give it direction. But what can authors do today when it comes to AI? Like, what kind of potential is there, and what are you playing around with when it comes to that with book writing?
Yeah, I heard a really good podcast with a creator named Karen X Cheng,
Mm,
Cheng, and she did the first cover of Cosmo magazine that was AI generated. And in this, she talked about how much research went into the prompt engineering, how many prompts she did, days and days and days of prompts,
really?
and her body of knowledge. So if you look at this cover, it's kind of a woman dressed in a space suit, shot with a wide angle lens camera, kind of on the ground looking up. And there are a
Mm,
bunch of things that Karen knew. First of all, she clearly knew about models and fashion because you can see how it's dressed is very like fashionable and tailored. So she had to be able to describe that to the prompt.
mm,
She also knows a lot about photography, cameras, camera angles, and
mm.
lighting because she had to describe all of that.
Wow.
So she didn't know a lot of that stuff. So she had to do research and talk to Cosmo um, lighting designers and photographers in order to get the right words to describe the
Mm,
prompt. So, weeks and weeks of research, days and days of writing prompts for one picture. Now, it's a picture you couldn't take. I mean, you could take it, it might cost you $1 million, like for the set and the actor and the lighting. So it definitely didn't cost $1 million. I mean, it was a
mhm,
woman on the
mhm,
moon in a spacesuit, lit in a very specific way. Like it would be, we'd be flying a lot of people to, I don't know, Jordan or something. So it would be very
mm.
hard to get this shot. Think of how much it costs to film The
Yeah,
Martian,
yeah.
but she was able to get this beautiful photo with a lot of work and then a lot of photo editing.
Hmm.
However, fingers, an extra head, whatever, all the photo editing on top of it.
Oh
They
my
didn't
God.
just go live with it. That is such a great story about your book. If you just right now went to Chat GPT and you typed in, write me a book about how to save money in a tight economy, I am sure you will not get a book length excerpt. You'll get a couple thousand words. It won't be a book. And so then you'll get frustrated and then you'll say, write me an outline for a book about how to save money when inflation is on the rise. And then you'll get an outline. It will be a super shitty outline, just like if I asked Chat GPT, write me a prompt for the first cover of Cosmo with an AI image on it.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
Karen had to think up that
Yes.
concept. She had to do all the research. She had to know how to edit the photo. All of the humaning is just as important. So there you cannot take the human out of this and get some amazing cover that Cosmo would want to run. And by the way, they still paid her. Maybe it wasn't $1 million like they might
Hmm.
have spent on a big shoot. They didn't have to
Hmm.
pay the individual lighting designer, like they paid less, but they still had to pay her as a creator because it was
Hmm.
her brain that made it.
Hmm.
So if you're going to use AI to promote a book that's out there, to promote a course that you've done that goes with your book, to promote yourself as a speaker, I don't know if you've checked out Book Blaster. It's super fun. They'll make AI social media. They'll make AI book trailers for your book.
Nice.
If
Nice.
you put in a crappy book description and a crappy book cover from your crappy self-published book, that is not going to make those outputs magically work. You'll just have a trailer. If
Yeah.
your course is crappy and we can't hear you and you're sitting in front of a window and there's light behind you and we can't see your face, the fact that you wrote the scripts for it with AI won't it won't matter either way. You still have to create quality stuff. If
Yes.
anything, it's more important now because people won't know it. So, what can authors do right now? Programming AI is a programming language like Python or
Hmm.
COBOL or any other programming language, Java. It is a program language that is in English. If you are an author and you plan to operate beyond 2025, you must learn programming skills. In AI, great news, it's just English. And you're a writer, so you're probably going to be better at this. And you're probably a reader, so
Hmm.
you're probably going to be better at this than most people. Like, we can leverage your skills, but whether it's to write your next book, promote a book, write a course, write the marketing around your courses, you need to understand programming so you're getting the outputs you want.
100%. And I love that because it's still, I think that there's so many fears, of course, around this new technology. And, we
It's
see
going to
all the
erase
robot
me. I
movies.
won't
It's
be
going to erase
needed.
me. It's going to take out all the humans on the planet. It's like, no, I don't think that's the case. And that point you just made proves that because the better you know this language, the more you'll benefit and the better
Yeah,
you'll benefit.
it's a totally new skill set. I have a 17-year-old son who has his father has a 7-year-old. So he's got a little brother that's 10 years younger.
Mhm.
And I'm teaching my 17-year-old programming with Chat GPT for
Okay.
his homework because I think
Okay.
this is such an important skill. Like, I want all my employees to know how to program in Chat GPT. So I'm like, I don't care what the teachers say, you need to learn. This is the skill. And as we were doing it, he said to me, my little brother will never not know how to program an AI. He won't
Yeah.
even know it was an option.
Wow.
So you'll still, some people will get an A on their English paper and some people get an F, but they will all use AI assistance in some way. It's going to just be built into
Oh,
Word. The
yeah.
next version of Word, it'll be built in.
Of
It'll be in
course.
Google Docs in weeks.
It's in
It
Canva right
already
now.
is. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
in Canva.
It's
Like,
in all these.
it's going to be everywhere, and knowing how to make the robot do what you want is
That's the
the
key.
key to surviving. Like
That is
that,
the key.
because otherwise you're going to get crappy outputs. I'm not
Mhm.
worried about the 3 million books a day for or 300 million books a day from India. They're not going to be as good as my author's books. I
No.
know how to structure a book. I know how to do creative storytelling. I'm not just saying spin content robot, and nobody
No.
wants to read that. It'll
Of
get
course not.
better, but still nobody wants to read that. We want your soul.
Yes. And that's where we can, like I said, once the chat GPT gives you whatever output, like you said, editing, giving that human element, all of those things are going to matter. And you mentioned, of course, it's important to learn this programming. So where are you learning that? Where do you advise other people to dive in and learn more of how to understand this language,
Well,
how to utilize it?
I'll give you my first warning. There's a lot of bad information out there,
I
including
bet.
some of my own, because none of us know what the hell we're
What's going
doing.
on?
And it's changing so fast. So, one of
It
the
is.
big business problems I'm having right now is I can't write standard operating procedures for any of this because as soon as I
Oh.
write it down, the technology's failed. So, everything I'm doing with my clients right now, I'm doing one on one, and
Mhm.
I'm taking my knowledge of what makes a great book, their expertise, and then there are a bunch of creators that I really like that I follow. I follow AI Talk on TikTok. There's
Mhm.
lots of great stuff. But I have to warn you about the prompt packs. So there are lots of $97, $7, like super cheap, under $100 list of 500 prompts that you can use for AI.
Hmm.
Guy I really like and follow, his name is Sean Vossler. He has something called Prompt Sauce, and I think it might be more like 2 grand. It's a little better, but they're still all wrong. One, because they're going to be irrelevant soon. Because so
It's going to
it's you have to
change.
learn the meta skill. But two, it's their prompt sauce. So the whole key is you have to learn how to write to make the robot sound like you.
For you, yes.
So there are some, like, I can give you like a quick little hack right now just to think. Most people will sit down and they'll say like, write me a paragraph about saving money. And which is fine. You will get a
Yeah.
paragraph
Yeah.
about saving
Yeah.
money. It'll be super generic. if you can just start first programming the who. So if you instead say, I'm a financial advisor with 200 clients under management, having an average of $250,000 in savings each, that's you. Then you're going to describe your ideal reader, your ideal client. I
Hmm.
am looking for more clients who have at least $250,000 in savings, six-figure jobs, and they are under 60 years old.
Hmm.
Now write me. Your task is to write me. And you can even tell the robot who they are. You're a consultant to my company who is an expert in copywriting. Your task is to prepare a paragraph for me to send to prospective clients describing why they should save money. So all that setup, it can't be in those prompts. Like all those
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
it's the way other people talk. And so what I spend a lot of time, weirdly, I'm going to get a little woo on you, but the thing I spend time with my clients on is their human design, their
Yes.
personality,
Hmm.
their like energy. Are they an introvert or an extrovert? Because the way you write the prompts is so different. Like if you're in human design, if you're a generator, I
Hmm.
write completely different prompts than if you're a projector.
Oh
So
wow.
projectors get very annoyed with AI because they're supposed to be the wise guide and they're being like taken over, but
Yeah.
they can use it for brainstorming. Same thing with like fact finders. Fact finders will just keep generating prompts and keep generating prompts and keep generating prompts and never finish. So they need to use, if you're a Colby fact finder, you want to use AI for refining your draft, but you actually want to write bullet points and say,
Mm.
turn this into.
Mm.
Whereas if you're a quick start, especially if you're a quick start that's a resistant follow through, we want to actually have it write the first draft for you. So I combine their Colby, their Myers Briggs, their astrology, their human design, and each prompt is customized to that person and who they are. And that's why our books, even in draft form, don't sound like robots, but then they go through 4 to 6 rounds of editing. So they
Mm.
really don't sound like robots. So it is just an assistive aid.
Yeah.
The cool thing is we can get a whole manuscript done in about 8 hours. But on the downside, it still needs editing, it still needs
Yes.
design. Most
Yeah.
importantly, it needs your thinking. If you're not great at strategy or marketing, you're going to want to bring someone in to help with that. I'm sure when people come to you to do a course, they don't know
Yeah.
quite how to structure it, but they have
Right.
a million great ideas. That structure is now more important than ever.
Way, way important. Oh my gosh. I wish I had a sound effect, like either like an explosion or like fire or something that just came up because
Mic
yes.
drop.
Yeah, mic drop something. Yeah. Because that is so huge because like you said, the more you prompt, the more you understand that language and even more so understand yourself. Like that's the
Mhm.
key that is huge, right? We can understand our clients better, we can understand who we're talking to better, and the voice of you know who is saying whatever it is, right? Using those elements of human design, um, Enneagram, Colby, Myers Briggs, like that is huge. Like that's just another layer because I found that I've given like a huge prompt to ChatGPT. I'm like, let me give this as much as I can. This is who I am. This is how long I've been in business. This is my specialty. This is my background. I like to have fun. Like I just put like
Mhm.
all kinds of things in there. And then I said, this is kind of like you said, this is who I'm looking to help. Write a paragraph that, is going to describe this and include a call to action and a PS to the email or something. Like I'm giving
Yep.
it all kinds of prompts. And the more that I give it, really from an understanding of who I am, right, it makes a huge difference. And understanding that language, it determines the output and what
Yep.
you can do with
And
it.
then there will be ways to program your voice so you don't have to explain that every time. Like that stuff's
Exactly.
not savable yet, but it's minutes away.
I'm
All
starting
this
to
is
see it save a little
changing.
bit though. It's saving, and it's like in its own way. Like I wouldn't have to
Yeah.
reference something from the start. It just would pick
Yeah,
up
if you're
on.
in a document, it will. But if you close out and start fresh, you have to like
Right. Right.
reprogram the bot.
Right. Right.
So that you'll be able to log in and say, this is me or this is my client. There'll be so many more features added, which is why I'm not writing up SOPs. But if you can understand how to think about this, and this is the other thing that I'm constantly telling people, if this sounds so horrible to you and you're like completely turned off
Yeah.
by it, it also won't work. So focus on other things. You have like a big list of things to do for your book. Go do those other things. Like you won't die if you don't do this. It's not that
Right.
it's that
Right.
much faster. It's just that certain parts are faster. So when I
Hmm.
started writing, I wrote my first book at 13 and I wrote by hand. I still have my very first manuscript. Actually, I think I did my, yeah, I actually wrote my very first book when I was 7 and I wrote it by hand. And like, that's
Wow.
it if you're watching
Wow.
on video. And then I had to type it. And when I did this one, I didn't know how to type. There were only typewriters. This was 1983 when I finished it. And my mom typed it for me.
Hmm.
And every time she made a mistake, like we had a fancy typewriter that would like correct, you could go back and correct it
Okay.
because it had like whiteout in the keys. But if
Oh,
you
okay.
didn't, if you had like the old typewriter, you'd have to pull it out and start over. There are ways to like X things out, you'd X over it. So writing it out, then having someone type it, usually went to a typing service, not just because you were 7 and didn't know how to type. That took a long time just to
Yes.
get something in your hand. Then we went to word processors, but most people didn't have a printer at home. Then we got
Mm.
printers at home. Then we got computers. Like technology is constantly evolving. But I will tell you in 1984 when I was 1994 when I was working for those New York Times bestselling authors,
Hmm.
they still use typewriters. Even though there were word processors, there were computers. I had a computer at college, but they were faster on typewriters because that's what they knew.
Mm.
And they were making six figures as authors and winning Pulitzer prizes. So there are things, and David Wise, one of my first bosses, always told this to me, like there are things that I get out of the speed of typing.
Mm.
And people still tell me from writing by hand, there are things I personally, as a human, get from writing it out by hand. Not me, because I don't. I hate writing things out by hand. But my brain thinks so fast now. If I'm not typing, it feels too slow.
Hmm.
And I
Hmm.
can see with AI, it's going to generate paragraphs for me even faster than I can type. And it's faster for me to edit those. But if it's not for you, just don't do it. You won't
Right.
die.
Right. You can life
Right?
goes on, right? You can you're still
It's
valuable,
just
you're
a
still a
tool.
human.
There's nothing to freak out about.
Exactly.
And I'm sure people were freaked out when personal computers came out. I'm sure people were freaked out when typewriters came
It's a
out.
change.
I'm sure pens freaked out some priest who was like, "What? Now the regular humans can write things and learn
Yeah,
how to
this is the
write and
devil.
read? We should only let priests write and read." So,
It's
if
yeah.
you're
Yeah.
freaking out, that's what you sound like. Just chill. It's fine. You do you, do it however you want.
Yes.
But if you want to leverage, essentially like leveraging personal computers, you're going to have to learn it
Yes.
or stick with your typewriter. Also fine.
100%. Well, I'm so appreciative of this conversation. I'm taking notes, and I want to be sensitive to time and for our listeners. So, what would your last parting words of advice be for authors? And feel free to also, I want you to share about your program, or sorry, your training. Can I write a book.com? So, we'd love to hear about that.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I think the training is a really good place to start because what matters most is your thinking. I reread a Heidegger, Martin Heidegger is a philosopher, and he wrote Das ist Denken, and it's what is thinking.
Mm.
I remember reading this in grad school, and I was like, oh, I need to read this again And what his thesis is that you have to think to write. Thinking is required for writing. And then he says, thinking is thanking. Gratitude, thanking. Thinking
Mhm.
is thanking. And you have to understand and appreciate a broader picture to think clearly in order to be able to write. And what I teach in canIwriteabook.com, that's the free training that I have there, is how do you come up with an idea and how do you structure it? And then whether you're typing, writing by hand, using AI, using a typewriter, using a keyboard, using a computer, it doesn't matter. It all starts with what are you thanking? What are you appreciating? What are you noticing?
Mm.
And that from that base, if you can structure those thoughts so you can communicate that clearly, however you write it, it's going to be a much better book.
Man, so good. I highly recommend all listeners, viewers to this to go and check out Dr. Angela's training because, as you can see, she is definitely a pioneer in this space, and she's been uh, killing it. I don't know what else to say. I love your work and what
I'm
you're doing.
so
Like,
excited to have a chance to learn a new technology. Like it's been a
yes,
minute and I don't know what the hell I'm doing, but I'm doing it. I love learning new stuff and I'm glad in my lifetime I have another opportunity for such a big evolution in
yes.
publishing. And if you've been scared to get your book done, or your next book done, or if you slogged through the first one and you're like, this is so hard, it might be that this assistive aid makes it easier for you. So definitely worth
100%.
digging into.
Yes, yes, yes. And again, I highly recommend getting in touch with Dr. Angela if you're an author, an aspiring author. It's definitely going to be worth your while. And I also want to just acknowledge you again, just in what you're doing in this space. You're helping others to express their voice and to know it's possible. And the way in which you do it comes from a place of lightness and caring and fun. So I appreciate that about you, and always have, and will continue to
Aw,
do that. Yeah. So
good.
as we
Thank you.
wrap things up, I always ask our guests one last fun question, which is, what is your one word?
Ooh. Well, I do have a word of the year, so I'm going to go with that one. And
Yes.
this year it's unmask. So,
Oh,
unmask. It's about being fully expressed. This is my year. I turned 50 this year. So,
woo!
all bets are off. I am fully unmasked. It's what I got.
I love it. Well, Dr. Angie, thank you so much for being here and spending time with me and sharing some of your wisdom and insight with the audience. Thank you. Thank
Thanks for
you.
having me.
Yes. And as we wrap up, I just want to thank everyone for tuning in. I hope that you found this conversation helpful, inspiring, fun. Don't forget to grab a copy of Get More Bang for Your Book. It's a book that we've created. It's packed with even more tips and strategies that are going to empower you to draw on your expertise and influence oh my God, gotta say that again. It's going to empower you to draw on your expertise and enhance the influence of your written work. And as always, if you want to stay on top of the latest trends in book publishing and marketing, be sure to subscribe to the show and share it along with a friend. Until next time, remember, keep spreading your message and remember the power of your words. I can't wait to share more with you on our next